I'm taking 4 Sprunki characters and making them look realistic in Photoshop. Then I'll do the same with the horror versions. So this is your warning that there will be some fictional blood near the end of the video. But on a video I made that went insanely viral, a bunch of people commented letting me know I should make Sprunki realistic. But to be honest, I didn't know what that was. But after doing minimal research, the user Pastel Pink Yoshi on Reddit explained that Sprunki is an online fan game for Incredibox, an online song mixing game where you can mix and match different parts of a song. But apparently sometimes things go wrong, so we have normal versions and we also have horror versions. So first we're gonna take the normal version of the character and make them realistic, and then turn the realistic normal character into the horror version. Starting with the yellow character whose name is Simon. So I recreated the body and added a grass texture on top of everything, and then added some shadows below the head, ears, antennas, and also the balls on the top. I added some highlights on the top of the head and next added some eyebrows. I used the ellipse tool to make circles for the eyes and added some eyeballs. I changed the color of the eyes to yellow and drew the eyelids with the brush tool. I added the texture to the eyelids and then some shadows below the eyelids onto the eyes. Next, I added some highlights on the top of the eyelids and then warped a mouth to be in the same shape as the original and changed the color to yellow. Next, I used a hairbrush to add some hair and then changed the color and added some lighter strands. So this is the realistic normal version of the yellow character.
Show. Left her man in the crowd on the floor. Out of town, never saw her before. Told her, baby, we don't got that long. Listen.
But we're not done with this guy yet because we gotta turn this guy into this guy. So I'll start off by removing the eyes and eyebrows, and then I'll make everything darker and add some more shadows. I added some extra shadows on the face under the eyes and where the nose would be, and then copied the shape of the mouth on the horror version. I drew the character's gums with the brush tool and added some shadows on the bottom of the mouth before redrawing every single tooth. I made the teeth get darker as they go out and then added a bunch of shadows on top of them. I added a little texture to the gums before redrawing the bottom teeth and adding shadows on those. I added a tooth texture to every tooth and we're pretty much done. So here's the realistic horror version of Simon.
I hit it fast, yeah, I hit it slow. Bye by the morning, girl, I gotta go. Gotta get ready, tonight is my show. If you okay, you might help in my show. Gotta be partners right under my nose. These niggas mad 'cause I got all the doubt.
The next character I'm gonna make realistic is the purple character, and his name is Durple. I started by making a circle for the head and redrawing the character's body. Next, I added the spikes on his head and copied the ear things on the sides. Now that I have the full character, I'm gonna add a leather texture to the body and ears, and then warp that same texture on top of the head. I added some shadows coming from the head onto the body and ears, and warped some eyebrows to look the same as the original. After that, I made some circles for the eyes and also added some eyelids on top. I added an eyeball to the eye and made it more blue. I put some shadows on the top of the eyelids and below them onto the eyes. And then I warped a horn texture onto the spikes. I made it purple and put one on the other side. I faded the horns into the head and then added a mouth. I erased the unneeded parts and changed the blending mode to luminosity and then adjusted the levels. So this is the purple character, but realistic. Now let's make this guy creepy. So first I readjusted the position of some parts and then erased the eyes and made everything a lot darker. I made new eyeballs for the character and added the eyes and made them dark gray. But next I added a bevel and emboss to the eyeballs and then drew the rest of the face with the brush tool and then erased the extra parts. I made the texture bigger and added the mouth. And following that, I added some shadows on the bottom of it and faded out a mouth kind of texture inside the mouth. And since this character has no teeth, we're pretty much done. So this is the horror version of the character Durple. Now let's make the silver character realistic, and his name is Clucker, I think. I think this character looks pretty chill, but the horror version is a little bit different, and that's where we start adding the blood. But we need to create the regular version first, so I'll start off by using the rectangle tool to recreate the character's body and use the ellipse tool to make the head. Next, I recreated the eyeballs and added some eyes. I'll also use the brush tool to draw the eyelids and add some highlights and shadows. After that, I'll use the ellipse tool to make an oval on the head, which I'm guessing is a circular blade. That's what I hope it is, at least. I'm gonna add some shadows below the head and below the circular blade before cutting out this metal hook that I'm gonna use for this part. I fixed the cutout because the quick selection tool kind of sucks, but I'll add it on top of the circular blade and then use the puppet warp tool to shape the hooks a little bit. I cut the bottom of the hook off and then added some shadows to the blade under it to make it seem connected. I also changed the color to gray, adjusted the levels, and added a bevel and emboss. I added the same mouth we've been using for every other character and then reshaped it a little bit. I took out all the color and then erased the unwanted parts. And after that, I added a circular silver texture onto the blade and then warped it to make it look a little bit better. I changed the levels and added a bevel and emboss to make the edges look sharp, and then added a silver texture onto the body and warped a different metal texture onto the head. So this is my realistic version of the silver Sprunki character. But now let's work on the horror version, and this character is probably the creepiest one we've had so far. But there's some things I need to change, like removing the eyes and making everything a lot darker. But next, I moved the blade down to match the horror version and adjusted the eyes a little. I also added a red gradient to the eyes like the original and another bevel and emboss on the circular blade. After that, I used the puppet warp tool to make the hook longer. I redrew the mouth with the brush tool and filled it in. But next, I added a picture of the bottom row of someone's teeth and used the warp tool to shape it up a little bit. Next, I removed some unneeded parts and added a shadow in the front. I added a texture of the inside of a mouth and faded it out, but next I added some dripping blood coming from the mouth and then blurred it a little bit. I did the same for the left side of the mouth and then added some blood on the hook and the circular blade because I thought that would just make it look cooler. Following that, I added some dripping blood to the side of the head and in the middle of the face. I added some more blood on the left eye and used the warp tool and then added a Gaussian blur. I added some red to the bottom of the eyes to make it look more natural, I guess, but after that I added some more blood on the body because why not, you know? We're getting freaky. No, cut that out. But after getting freaky, I added the final blood on the right eye and warped it. So this is the realistic horror version of the silver character. The final character I'm gonna make realistic is the orange character, and his name is Orin. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it. He's got some headphones, so I wonder if he's listening to Fiend. But anyways, I used a bunch of shapes to recreate different parts of the body and also warp some eyebrows into the right position. I cut out some eyelids, but then got a picture of headphones and cut out the ear parts with the pen tool and then added it onto our picture. I put another one on the other side and then added some steel balls onto the antennas to make them look, well, like balls. I added the back side to the headphones and then put a texture on top of it, but then cut out the top part of these headphones and had to watch a video on how to do it because of these small holes, which never really mattered in the first place because I'm gonna show it to you on a white background. I reshaped the headphones into the correct position and made them orange. I added the same texture from the sides of the headphones onto the top and added a bevel and emboss. I added a skin-like texture onto the body, which does not mean he's naked, okay, but I also added that texture onto the head and warped it into a circle. I added some highlights onto the body, head, eyes, and also put some shadows on the antenna balls. I also added some realistic eyes and added a creepy little smile, and after cutting that out, I added the hair on the top of his head with a hairbrush tool, and then I was finished. So this is the realistic version of Orin. But now let's make the horror version. And earlier I said this character is probably the creepiest one we've had so far. And I said that because this bro got opened up. I kind of feel bad for him, but we're gonna have to add some organs, and I'm not talking instruments. So first I moved the eyebrows up to match the horror version, and then removed the eyelids on the top of the eyeballs. I took out all the color in the eyes and then made everything more dark and added more shadows. I added a red gradient to the eyeballs and changed the blending mode on the eyes to luminosity, but next I removed the uncanny mouth and added a different mouth and then faded it onto the head. I used the brush tool to redraw the open hole in his chest and colored it in, but after that I added some dripping blood onto the left eye and added some more onto the other one. I added some lungs in the hole and then a gross texture in the background to represent the other side of his body. I colored on the outside of the hole with a red brush and then changed the lighting on it to make it look like there's more depth. But following that, I added some intestines below the lungs and adjusted the levels. I also made the lungs and intestines more dark to make it seem like it's more inside of the body. I also added some blood on the outside and then a rib, and then moved it to fit the ribs in the original. And after placing all 6 of them, I cut them to make it seem like it's behind the organs and then changed the levels. Then I added some shadows to sell that illusion a little bit more. I added some dripping blood coming from the hole, because why not? And at this moment, I thought to myself, shouldn't there be a heart here somewhere? Because that's where it would be. So that means someone took it.
Oh, they took my freaking kidney.
So I'll just add a little heart on the ground next to him with a small shadow below it. And this is the realistic horror version of Oren. This is pretty fun and a little bit gross when I had to search for certain items, but these are all the normal versions that I made realistic. And these are all the horror versions. Subscribe and comment which was your favorite.